So what's it like driving in London? Cyclists, motorcyclists, it's busy. Why is our positioning so important when it comes to driving in big cities? Now I'm going to put a caveat out there. To be honest with you, positioning is important everywhere, but particularly when we're driving in busy built-up areas. There are two ways in which we communicate when we're driving. Number one, which is the most obvious, is we use our signals, our directional indicators, to tell people which way we're turning, whether it's left or right. But the second, which is probably one of the most important, is our positioning. I always say this to my pupils: do you trust what people say or what people do? Most of the time, the answer to that question is pretty clear. They trust what people do. If we are saying one thing in the car by indicating that we're going to go in a particular direction, but we're actually communicating something completely different when it comes to our positioning, how confusing is that going to be to other road users?
So let's start with normal driving position.
Driving on a road like this is pretty simple. If I think about my positioning, I want a good meter or so from these parked cars. This is the normal driving position. I want to be able to pick up my speed, so I want as much space on the left-hand side as possible.
And a good way to think about it is this 1 meter of space on your left-hand side is a bit like an overdraft that you can dip into when you need to. More on this later.
When I'm turning right, you should also understand that we change position in the road to turn right. Now here I've signaled right, I've told the vehicle behind I want to turn right, I then position right to confirm my intentions.
And then of course when we're turning left, we position left.
The positions that we take up when we turn left and right are really fundamental and incredibly important. And we do need to make sure that when we are turning left and turning right, that we are communicating exactly what our signal says that we're going to do. And at no point any last minute sort of maneuvering to the left or vice versa, maneuvering to the right when I'm turning left to confuse other people of what my intentions are. Now, generally when people swing out when they turn, it's because they're trying to take the turn a little bit more quickly than they should. But it's not something that we should be doing in the roads in general. The general ethos about how we teach to drive as driving instructors is that we want to be defensive in the way that we drive. And what defensive driving means is being aware of the mistakes of others, plus also trying to reduce the mistakes that we might make. So we do that by anticipating, planning, looking far ahead, being courteous. Coming to a roundabout, I give way to the right. However, I'm in a big city. And even though that guy came out of nowhere, I've got to be ready for it. He wasn't there initially. I could have torn across that roundabout, then all of a sudden he's there. And he's not approaching it defensively. He's not thinking about what could be coming from his right. So if he's not going to think about what's coming from his right, I'll be thinking about how I can manage it as safely as possible. But one of the ways that we can start to resolve some of these issues, to reduce the mistakes of others, is to be very, very clear about what our intentions are when we're driving. My signal says right, my positioning confirms I'm turning right. Anyone coming up behind me knows that's where I'm going. When it comes to meeting situations, we sometimes bury ourselves so that we can't actually get out. We miscommunicate to the vehicles behind. They think we're parking and they go around us, and we're now in a very difficult position to then move off again, and we aren't able to use what I'm going to show today, which is the nudge.
So this is where that overdraft of space that I was talking about earlier comes into play. But we're not going to be talking about our own, but the oncoming cars. Because we're all driving around trying to give ourselves enough room so that we can drive at a normal pace, we can encourage the oncoming vehicles to use their overdraft when we need it.
The nudge. It's very important that if you're going to nudge people or you're going to encourage them to give you a little bit more room, you don't forcefully get them to move over, you just encourage. And if you do it at the correct time, it'll be safe.
The nudge can also simply be that you hold your position. At first glance, it might seem inappropriate to proceed up this road until you see their overdraft of space. Hold your ground, keep your speed down, and be ready to use yours when you need to. After all, we're not greedy.
And then you have roads which are just a little bit tight. Now, this is not a really tight road. However, you got a junction on the right-hand side.
Overdraft time.
With cars that could force you to use a little bit more space on the left.
I'm hoping by now that the penny's starting to drop. That 1 meter of space is something that I can dip into when I need to. and I can encourage others to do the same. We constantly reenact this scenario over and over again. It's a dance. We all dance together.
So what's it like driving in London? Pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists. It's busy, space is tight. Everything that a learner driver would struggle with. Experienced drivers do it all the time. And here we have kids driving in big cities. Scary. Now looking at the space here, I can see that 2 cars could fit. However, that car's not moving. It's now moving and it's moving towards me. In order to create more space, I'm going to use that little bit of space that I've still got on my left-hand side to allow them to come through. If I maintain my position too far to the right, they're not going to be able to fit, and then we're going to be fighting for space. Get it wrong, however, and you see what's happened to that wing mirror? Nerve-wracking. Can be overwhelming. Normally, one of the main things that people get wrong when they're driving in big cities is A, they're either driving too fast when they're approaching situations where they should be reducing their speed, or B, they're not able to manage the space properly, which is in a direct correlation to which speed they're traveling at. That's so tight. I think I'm gonna have to go up on the curb. I don't really want to, and I've managed to squeeze through, just about. I mean, imagine I'm parking. And this is the kind of thing that you have to deal with if you're driving in central London. It's the space that you're judging, and how are you actually judging that space? Are you able to encourage people to give you a bit more room, or are you like a little bit of flotsam floating in the ocean that's constantly getting blown this way or that and is not able to manage the situation safely? The taxi is coming towards me. There's enough space, I think, for us to fit. It's going to move out, and as it moves out, I'm going to move over slightly. It's now moved back away, so I can now move back out again. How we manage that pass is important. Is it something that's impossible? Can we all do it? If you live in a place where there's not much town driving, could you handle driving in a big city? Or would you never drive up, only take the train? If you like what you've seen here, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. But in the meantime, get well out.